We continue with the life history of Dr. Giuseppe Ambrosoli. With his kind of heart, it was easy to be the healing the heart. It is then easier to understand Father Giuseppe's impressive ability to combine the highest professionalism with rapid and intense invocations to the good Lord that has kept him in moments of danger to the life of the sick person. Dr. Bruno Tacheta tells us, faced with particularly serious situations, Father Giuseppe sometimes asks Muslim patients, "Do you want us to pray together?" And the sick man answered, "Of course I do. Don't we have the same God?" Father Giuseppe simply wanted to be the human image of Christ who passed in this world healing, and that the sick should see in him the Jesus who heals. Proverbio has become his serenity, accompanied by an unmistakable smile. From the Africans, he learned that kind of sensitivity and delicacy that characterizes them. He felt that he had to heal the whole person, body and soul. The testimony of Comboni's sister Caterina Machetti, originally from Rossano, Veneto, Vicenza, is important in this sense. I lived with Father Giuseppe for 22 years, and I was always struck by seeing the same person at the altar during Mass with the consecrated host in his hands, and then in hospital with the patient in the same hands, treating him, the patient, with the same attention and kindness. The two were equally precious to him. As he was in love with Jesus, so he was with the sick, and he visited them, bringing them also some of his food. Father Ponziano Veluto says, "I saw him, and more than once, coming back late from the safari, that is, visit to the villages, put aside half of his food to take it to some sick people." Unlimited was the trust of the local people in the healing powers of Father Giuseppe, to the point of considering him a sort of healer. It happened that those who had been treated by him before, meeting an acquaintance or sick family member, would tell them, "If you are sick, you only have to go to Father Giuseppe. He will visit you and you'll come back healed." And people flocked to Kalongo from all over Uganda and even from Kenya and Sudan. In collective imagination of the people, Father Giuseppe had become the man of God who had the power to heal, and to heal not only the body, but also the spirit and the heart. Always with the last, that is his way of life. His being servant of all also manifests itself in the care of his lepers. Lepers are the poorest of the people and are abandoned. He, knowing perfectly all well that lepers do not represent a danger for others, surprises everyone by welcoming them into the wards with the other patients. He also works for their integration with the general health care structures. He has given himself a rule and wants his assistants to follow him as well. To avoid as long as possible the amputation of limbs comprised by the disease, and try in every way to reconstruct those already affected. And in the end, there would be many leprosy patients who will owe him the recovery of sensitivity of the limbs. Lepers were so high on Father Giuseppe's scale of values that even though he was in extreme need in the hospital, he deprived himself of Dr. Donini, placing him at their full disposal. Day after day, he let others use all his time, almost forgetting himself. His time, whether spent in the operating room or in weekend pastoral activities, like Saturday evenings, he gladly offered himself for confessions in the parish, and on Sundays went with pleasure to celebrate Mass in the villages. Was the time of God's love given. He felt that medical profession and priestly service could very well go together, and saw no dichotomy in it. He saw Jesus in the sick room. The sick person was his Lord and Master, and he therefore was given absolute priority. To him belonged his time, his energies, his intelligence, and his sympathy. He never considered the social class or the political affiliation of a sick person. With their father, Giuseppe had an infinite patience. He never rebukes them and manages to get the truth told, especially that of the prayer passage to the traditional healer. It often happened, in fact, that a patient, before surrendering to modern medicine, turned to traditional medicine. In Father Giuseppe, there was a preferential love for the sick, especially if sometimes, being sick, they were always poor and left on their own. Life is full of ups and downs. Hard times. With the coming to power of Idi Amin Dada in 1969, watching the collapse of an entire country from school to healthcare at the mercy of total hagglings, violence, and inefficiency, Father Giuseppe's heart wouldn't help but be deeply shocked. Father Giuseppe's heart couldn't help but be deeply shocked. He was not the only one to understand that with Amin, Uganda was destined to collapse. The new tyrant thirsted for power and would be guilty of unspeakable wickedness and horrors against a people abandoned to its misery. For years, the country will remain in the hands of a character who will be a perfect blend of showman and gangster in uniform. The hospital, therefore, had to make do, and this became increasingly evident as the regime revealed its true face. The fierce face against all opponents, Father Giuseppe then came into contact with the missionary Caritas of Bologna, beginning a valuable collaboration which would last until his death, which would also involve professors and doctors of the university. Since leprosy was added to the already functioning departments, in 1972, the Ministry of Health asked Kalongo to take on the leprosy control project, i.e. the responsibility of leprosy patients in the district of northern Uganda. Father Giuseppe Ambrosoli appointed Don Donini, a leprosy specialist in Addis Ababa, as an administrator. The German non-governmental organization, German Leprosy Relief Association, agreed to sponsor the project. Also in 1973, the Italian Foreign Ministry approved the Kalongo project as the QUOM Project University of College of Aspiring Missionary Doctors in Padua, relieving Father Giuseppe of the financial burden of doctors. Despite the continuous alternations of doctors, the personal emergency will be a constant thorn for Father Giuseppe. He told the many who came and hoped that someone would decide to stay, but this did not happen. Above all, he looked for collaboration and created co-responsibility. The doctors who worked alongside him had to feel that the Kalongo Hospital was theirs. Father Giuseppe wanted all the nursing staff to feel directly involved in the management of the hospital's large apparatus. He offered co-responsibility and autonomy to his fellow doctors. He was particularly interested in enhancing the local element. Deep and sincere was the esteem he showed for the sisters who collaborated with him. When he went to visit the dispensaries that depended on the hospital, he never failed to praise the activity in the eyes of the nursing staff, recognizing that their work was indispensable. In this regard, perhaps the best praise of Father Ambrosoli is to be found in these words of Master Gino Owin, who later became a farmer, who had known Father Giuseppe ever since he was with Brother Avi, who went to look for him to bring him to Kalongo. All the staff, especially the hospital staff, worked and lived with him as in a happy family under his guidance. Gino, of course, also felt an integral part of this happy family, to the point that after the first exile of all the hospital staff, he would organize, with the help of local Christian community, the defense and preservation of the hospital and the mission. We continue from there next time.